Hello in TV land. It's your boy Freelancer Joe, ready to once again get cracking. And how are you all doing on this fine and glorious and wonderful Sunday afternoon? I always felt odd calling the time afternoon when it's like just 12. In this case, it's 12:29. In the middle of lunch, I suppose, for many people, most people. Um, Lunch. Freelancer Joe remembers when he used to have lunch. Freelancer Joe, you don't have lunch? Well, no. One meal a day. One glorious, bloated meal a day, but it's still just one meal a day. I find that being hungry kind of helps me focus. Sometimes it doesn't help me focus on what I'm doing. Instead, it kind of helps me focus on food, but no, focus is focus. It just requires some mental energy to get refocused on the correct thing. Of course, the downside is on cheat days, I do tend to lose a little bit of restraint when I'm putting things together. So many times I buy food when I'm hungry, which is the worst possible thing you can do. Never buy food when you're hungry. And then eat maybe like a quarter of it and realize I bought too much. Well. But this is my rest week this week, so hopefully I shouldn't be too bad. We'll see. My body tends to be kind of funny when it comes to those sorts of things. But anyway, I said we're gonna get cracking, and we should get cracking. This is the first of 2 episodes I'm going to record today. The second episode I'll upload tomorrow, but yeah, I've decided that I am going to go ahead and try and see what a double recording session looks like. Or not looks like. I mean, it's going to pretty much look the same, but the impact that it has upon me. As somebody who is not normally the most verbose or loquacious, word of the day, it will be interesting to see if I can keep up the pace. I imagine I could, but the benefit of taking time between episodes is that I can kind of at least develop a rough guideline of what I'm going to come up with. And it's not incredibly difficult to come up with content for 30 minutes, but only having a day to come up with content for 1 hour, a little tricky. And it's not like my content is particularly engaging anyway, but the content's not engaging, so it's up to me to carry the burden on my broad and massive shoulders, and as you can see, they are no doubt used to carrying massive burdens. In fact, at work, I carry the team all the time. I'm a pack mule, practically. But we're going to give it a shot. I'm still waffling on whether or not I'll go ahead and go to the all hands tomorrow, so I might actually have the time if I skip it, but at the very least I should try and see what it looks like, because as I mentioned in yesterday's Drinks with Joe, there's an entirely a good possibility that it might not be my choice in the future. I may have to either break down and do multiple episodes in a day on a weekend, record them on the weekend, or push them until later at night recording them, and the quality is iffy as is, so I'm not entirely inclined to do that. Freelancer Joe doesn't like consistently pushing himself. I don't mind, pushing myself for that hump goal, but you have to have downtime, and were I to do something like extend my normal workday and then still push myself to do recordings at the end of the day, I would need to take a break at some point. So, anyway, let's get cracking. Again, part 1. Well, I think I'll still treat them like separate episodes. I might even shut everything down just so I can stall to bring them back up. It's all clever showmanship. Alright, let's win escape, and while I minimize myself, those with privilege often minimize me. Well, they attempt to minimize me, but yeah, they are welcome to attempt. Don Quixote charge at those windmills all the time, and it's very much in the same vein. So where do we leave off? I feel like I got something in my nose. Where did we leave off when I did my last recording episode? On when was the last one? It wasn't Friday. It was Thursday. Oh, really? Thursday? Man, I really am not doing as much as I should be on these particular activities. Well, I say that, but Freelancer Joe actually did some work off camera. Because when we left off on Thursday, I was in the middle of, if I remember correctly, let me change directories. If I remember correctly, Freelancer Joe was going through, trying to get rid of the warnings in his website. The warnings that are generated in the browser console as a result of my JavaScript libraries. The reason I'm going through and getting rid of them is, I mean, they're just warnings. They can be safely ignored for the time being, and potentially even in the future too. But it is something that is known as a technical debt. These are things that really probably should be addressed in the future, or as soon as possible, because they might have an impact on the future. Now, most of those warnings I could probably ignore, but if there was one particular time period I remember working with these libraries that when I did a package upgrade, React was basically warning about properties that it didn't recognize. And when I did the upgrade, that version of React actually would drop those properties. As in, so I don't recognize them, so I'm not going to pass them to whatever you wanted me to pass them to. Which caused a bit of a problem because the Material UI library depended upon those properties. So this is why you generally want to at least be aware of the warnings and understand how to fix them. Now, in that particular example, as it turns out, there was nothing I could do. I simply had to back out until the Material UI library upgraded so that they use properties that React would recognize. But if we can get rid of the warnings, then we should get rid of the warnings. Yes. Carrying debt, not a good thing. I wish Freelancer Joe knew then, when he bought his condo, what he knows now. Alright. Yes, debt. Debt's a bad thing. Terrible thing. Horrible thing. Easy money, they say. No such thing as easy money. Well, that's not true. There is such a thing as easy money. But at what price to your soul? Okay, so my main page, the home page, no errors. And that's all squared away. That's good. So let's take a look at About Me. And we have, again, no errors, and that's not a surprise. And then the services is where we were getting errors. So there were two. The first one had to do with keys, not specifying identifiers in when you place items in an array or a list, which I suppose is the same thing, really. Got rid of that. That was easy. But this was the tricky one. The React does not recognize the anchor EL prop on a DOM element. And I believe when I stopped the episode, on Thursday, I was looking over some documentation, very engaging viewing. Couldn't figure out, so we stopped on a low note. But so it's still there. So I had tried. Well, I know the solution. That's what I did off camera, was I figured out what the solution was. But we'll go through it. So it seemed that at least that what I was looking at the end of Thursday was that, well, maybe I should just pass in these properties via the spread operator. If I don't explicitly name them, then maybe that'll fix it. And this is kind of neat. As much as there are things that I do not like about JavaScript, there are some things that I do. And this is particularly cool, being able to pass around functions. I mean, that's just sweet. There have to be other languages that have done it before, but it's still just kind of cool. But it's also kind of, it's the drawback. When you don't have strong typecasting and you get a lot of flexibility, if you don't properly keep track of that sort of thing, yeah. Anyway, so recreate this object. I create this object. Well, no, we're in this together, you and me. And then we just added in these things that I was complaining about not knowing, right? So it was complaining about what? It was complaining about didn't know anchor EL. I don't know what the pronunciation is for that. Anchor L. I didn't know open popover ID. Didn't know open popover. And I didn't know close popover or on open new window requested. Okay, so we'll throw it into one of these objects and we'll just pass it in via the spread operator. Maybe that'll fix it. No, it won't. Freelancer Joe already knows the answer to that question. I'm like a lawyer. Never ask a question you don't know the answer for. A teacher, I'm sure, would disagree with that. I mean, how do you learn things if you don't ask the question? Yeah, that's a good point. Well, if you're trying to learn, then you can go ahead and ask whatever question you want. But if you're not trying to learn, then you never ask a question you don't know the answer to. Well, why would you ask a question that you already know the answer to? Well, that's a rhetorical argument. For rhetorical styles, you generally, well, not generally, but for most people, leading them in a certain direction is the way to go. So I could go into a whole spiel on that one. Alright, so reload this back up. We still have no errors on that, which makes sense. Not errors, warnings. And again, no errors on this. Fine. I'm double checking that because this content paper is actually a shared component. All these views, well, not the home view, but all these other views use this same one. So if I change it, I got to make sure all the other ones still work fine. Services, all right, and we still get this error, which is totally expected because I know what's going on. So we need to look closer at this because it's one of the maybe it's just a bad habit I picked up from when I was programming in Java, is that the libraries don't always give you the most descriptive warning message or error message. Now, it's still useful in Java, for example, with the stack trace to at least know where it occurred, or at least have a good idea where it occurred. And it's less helpful in JavaScript because of some of the mojo it does. But React is based on work done by Facebook, and that's a professional organization, and they've actually done a pretty good job of documenting or producing useful output. So if we look closely here, it says React does not recognize the anchor EL prop on a DOM element. Okay, if you intentionally want to appear in a DOM as a custom attribute, spell as lowercase, I did try that before, that didn't work. But here's an interesting thing, it says in div created by custom slide. So what that means is that for some reason that anchor EL prop is being applied on a div in custom slide. And that's the actual problem. Alright, so if we go look at custom slide, which was, it's one of my components, technically, but it's because I'm using someone else's library for the slide effect, right? If we look closely, yes, we do. We basically attach all of these properties that get passed into custom slide, which key index classes, CFG object. That's interesting. I wonder why it's not complaining about that. I really should complain about that. Anyway. And then it uses a spread operator to put it on there. Now, my guess is, this is the drawback of being Captain Cut and Paste, is I was just cutting and pasting from some example I saw on how to create a custom slide component for use with this particular library, the slider library. Whatever. Alright, so in theory, what if we just don't attach that spread operator to this div? I'm really not sure why we would. I mean, the only thing in there that's kind of useful would in theory be that's interesting. Const index equals a star. I don't use index. Okay, classes I use. I don't use index. Wonder why it's not complaining about that. Interesting. Or we're going to play around with this some more. Alright. But what we were saying, what I was saying. Alright, so let's see, what if we just kind of get rid of that? Alright, again, home is fine. About me is fine. Services. And now services does not have the error. So you would think, oh, you're done, Joe. And you're awesome. Well, one, yes, I am awesome. But two, no, I'm not done, because there's still functionality we need to double check to make sure it still works. Right? So we need to make sure that the slide effect still works, which apparently it does. And we need to make sure that the popover effect works. Which apparently it does. And the close. And the close still works. Okay, so yeah, now we can say we're done. And we can still say that I'm awesome. But now that I'm looking at this, I'm wondering, I really wonder why it complains about props, but not that. Alright, so it seems odd that I do this. And why I wrap a div in a div. It doesn't make sense, you know? So let's see what happens if I really should have just taken one of those out at a time. And let's take out index, since I don't seem to be using that anyway. And let's see if it comes back up, and if it still works. Alright, so no errors, fine. About me, fine. You know, let's double check to make sure that this still... Okay, good. And services, alright, no errors still. That still seems to work. That still seems to work, although I've seen some interesting behavior. Okay, no. I was a little curious about the ooh, interesting. Oh no, that's because I have that. Alright, that's fine. The popover component is too tall. Some part of it cannot be seen on the screen. That's because I have this open. I assume your average user is not going to be looking at the console to figure. I'd be very impressed if the average user was actually looking at it to see what was going on. Well, to be fair, once it's in production, I should have the logging set to error only, so they're not even going to see these. Alright, so that's good. Let's take a look at portfolio. And portfolio seems good. Template's still up. Nice, nice. Clear that out. Clients. Client's fine. And hire me. And you should hire me. That's fine. Alright. I could have sworn I saw something else. Services, that's fine. Oh, I know what it is. Alright. Check this out. There you go. Alright, so that's basically if you click on something that if you try to navigate to a view that you're already on. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Start it up again. Nice. Alright, alright. Minimize that. Not sure why it freezes like that all the time. Not all the time, but an interesting amount of time. Consistently. It's not very stable. Could be something I'm doing. I was double checking to make sure I wasn't muted. Oh, that would have been so annoying. 20 minutes in and I realized I muted the entire time. Alright, so the problem is when we click on a navigation thing that we're already on. Alright, well, let's take a look at what's happening. Alright, so this is the top bar. You know what we can do while we're at it? Let's go ahead and fix the formatting on this. Since we removed that div, I'll go ahead and bring these in just to make it party. Party. And I'm sure there's an auto formatting option I can do. But I find it oddly... Oh, see, that's kind of off. Not oddly, but 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I find it mildly therapeutic, actually. The monotony of that particular thing. Alright, so we don't need that. We're not messing around with actions anymore. That's fine. No, don't you dare do that. Don't you dare do that. It was going to try and copy it to some other location. I don't want you to do that. Alright. Top bar. Let's take a look at the top bar. This is the top bar. Render navigation buttons. This stop props on transition requested. So it attempts to transition. Fine, but that's passed in via on transition requested. This on transition click. Where is it defined? Okay, so on with key. Alright, yeah, there we go. So the real thing is, it tries to change the routes. So what I really need to basically do is, if we're already on the route, well, okay, there are two choices I could do. One, I could just disable the button and don't have it do the transition. But I can't say I like that. Why don't I like that? Well, you really want to disable the button. Well, a disabled button renders differently, right? But then again, I already rendered. That's true. See, I already rendered the button differently anyway. But a disable button typically doesn't visually pop, right? It's supposed to just not be there. And I really don't want to hide that particular... I don't want to hide the button. And that's really kind of how disabled buttons go. It's like they're supposed to be there, but not there, you know? There, but of lower visibility. But I purposefully want this to be visible and highlighted so that they have some idea of what page they're on. So that's why I don't want to do this disable. But what I am going to have to do now, so that's option 1. And I don't want to do that. That's too easy and not too easy. There's nothing wrong with too easy. I'm going to spend all my time just trying to figure out what's going on with the camera. Close. Did you close? Okay, you closed. This is sound and video, cheese. Okay. Alright. Alright, let's try this again. Minimize and always on top. I don't want to deprive you of my wondrous visage. I don't think I'm using that word correctly. Okay. Let's double check. Let's double check. Visage. Oh, that's actually a word. Nominative plural of... visai. Okay, now I'm curious what this is. Okay, so what is visus? No, not feminine. What is visus? I'm curious now. Latin, the action of looking, the power of sight, vision, sight apparition. Well, I wouldn't call myself an apparition, but I did want to see visage. Person's face, with reference to the form or proportion of the features. Yes, fabulous visage. Magnificent visage. Anyway. Okay, so option 1 was disabling the button. Option 2 is basically, instead of always handling the click, we check to see what the route is. If we are already at this particular route, or like if route/view. So if we're already on the About Me view, then we don't do another history push and another transition because that's kind of pointless. So that is what I'm going to do, but we are pretty much pushing the end of this episode. Since it's only a 2-parter, do I go through my spiel? My end spiel? Yeah, I will, because 1, I'm going to take a break, and probably do some training, shave, and then 2, since I'm going to be uploading the second part of the second episode on the following day, yeah, I mean, I'll have to ask the same questions again. So, yes, I will go through my normal end spiel, which is basically the cool kid words about liking and subscribing, commenting, and suggesting in the box below. Yeah, I should formalize that. But it would feel redundant. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day, or night, if you're watching this at night. No judgments. I mean, I can understand. You know, you get the insomnia, and you want the dulcet, sultry tones of Freelancer Joe to rock you to sleep. I can dig that. But whenever you're watching this, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of whatever it is, and that you take care, and God bless.